agenda. And there was a separate report from me that dealt with the as far as 2004.
Okay, so it wasn't community services. So that was what we had passed.
Disorganized today. There it is. Yeah, so we just skipped right by it.
It was at the end of
Well, you know, you're always thinking, what have I done now?
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, same thing.
What?
That was in the consent agenda.
Yeah, but I had pulled it and they did indicate it was pulled, but then they just skipped right by. I just assumed it was coming up in the next one.
So is that your piece of paper on the floor?
Nope.
What's he throwing garbage in the middle?
Okay.
Oh, yes,
Sylvia.
Oh,
It was for Laura. Oh, with the note I sent you.
members of the committee, if we can call committee to order. Public Works section of the coordinated committee meeting. First of all, I call for any disclosure of pecuniary interests, and I have none. If there's any interest to be called, do it now, and seeing none, we'll move on. Deputations, petitions, presentations, and public meetings. We have Mr. Glenn Switzer and Mr. Tom Reed. We have one or the other. Which one?
Tom Reed.
We have Mr. Reed from the Wasaga Valley Conservation Authority. He's in attendance to present the National Disaster Mitigation Program flood mapping partnership with NBCA. Mr. Reed, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So I have a few slides up on the screen to follow along. It's similar to the information provided in your report. The National Disaster Mitigation Program was it's a federal program that's been running now for about a year and a half, and this is the third intake we're looking to apply for. There are different streams in the program, and the idea behind it is to federally to try to reduce flood risk across Canada. Likely motivated by some of the recent floods, major high-profile floods in the western provinces and also in the GTA. The Wasaga Valley Conservation Authority applied for a round 1 flooding to do a risk assessment, which helps quantify the risks, and we're looking at 9 communities within the Wasaga Valley Conservation Authority to look at what the risk of flooding might be, and then to quantify it in terms of dollars, and do some, so you can kind of compare how some of the risks compare between communities. What we're bringing to the committee today is for a round 2 application to do site-specific floodplain mapping for the Wasaga River as it runs through Wasaga Beach. There is floodplain mapping already exists from the early 1990s for the Wasaga River, mapping out the regulatory and the 100-year event. That is mapping that has been used and applied for developments or permits through the Conservation Authority. But it's older, and we're hoping that we can update it with the new information that's available, new mapping techniques that are now at disposal for creating maps. And so we're applying for we're hoping to apply with in partnership with Wasaga Beach for that funding. The project sort of will consist of 4 different steps. We'll acquire better mapping data through new techniques for remote sensing, for photogrammetry. So there's high quality air photos that are available that can be reprocessed to determine elevations within less than a foot accuracy throughout along the river and the shoreline of the Wasaga River. Then we'll engage in a watershed hydrology exercise that determines the flows that will be used to model, like what is your regulatory or flow, what is your 100-year flow, but also what some of your more frequent event flows, a 5-year return period flow. That's an event that has a probability of recurring once every 5 years. Running that hydrology for the whole watershed to determine what the flows are at the mouth where Wasaga Beach sits. And then the next step is to do a hydraulic model, and that determines take that flow, run it down the river, and say where the flood lines are for these various return period events, and map those. And the final product is then a series of maps. Will be both digital, and we'll produce hard copies available so people can see where the flood line is on particular properties and the elevations there. As I think as detailed in the report, the watershed hydrology exercise part of the project would really benefit not just the town of Wasaga Beach, but the whole Wasaga River basin. So we're proposing that the Conservation Authority is funding that from their we had a board motion to fund that from our reserves. And the part that specifically targets Wasaga Beach, which is the mapping and the work done specifically with Wasaga Beach, we're asking that the town of Wasaga Beach would contribute that portion. It's a 50-50 match, so the numbers I think are presented in the report. A few benefits that we feel would be gained for tackling the project. We're anticipating through some of the experience we've had with the river and some of the works that's been going on, particularly related to the Wasaga Beach shoreline standards. There was a quick review of the flows that the flood elevations are potentially going to go down for the community of Wasaga Beach, which would potentially free up some. It would move some land that may potentially be in the flood now to be flood free in the future, as well. Some of the properties that are in the flood plain may have lower flood depths, and when it comes to redevelopment, would have lower cost for flood proofing. Because when we look at lots, some of the low-lying areas, we do allow redevelopment of existing homes. We still ask that they flood proof, which usually means elevation. And so sometimes the homes are built quite high above the existing ground in order to be flood proof. So the numbers are revised that those can come down. There's some cost savings there. The other thing we really hope to get out of it, and it's related more to emergency staff, but right now the mapping that we have available, it only shows the regulatory and the 100-year event. But we're also interested in on an annual basis what flood levels to expect from smaller events that some of the communities and properties are really close down low to the river. So by having updated mapping, we're also going to have a 5-year, a 10-year, 50-year, 25-year, all these different return periods events, and that helps us work with municipal emergency staff to say we're expecting this kind of event this year or this kind of event in a few days. So these are the properties that might be at risk. So we feel that's a strong benefit on the emergency side. And finally, it's a good starting point for any future works done along this corridor. Along the Wasaga River for any mitigation planning that comes in the future to have our updated modeling and mapping available to aid in that work. And so yeah, that's all I kind of wanted to go through it and available. And Glenn Switzer is here as well, so the two of us are available for any questions.
Are there any questions of the speaker?
Thank you. More comments than anything. I think this is a great opportunity to get flood mapping done for the town at a fraction of the cost. I think it's, the report says $146,000 value, it's only costing the town $28,000. I do see a significant value to the landowners whose properties will be in this area. Currently, the engineering, the things that they have to do, and they have to prove all of this individually is very expensive. So with this mapping in place, I think it will help them down the road as well. So I fully support it.
Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think this is a good idea as well. It's good to see that the NBCA is being proactive in getting with the times with respect to the flood plains and going to be hopefully allowing people to move forward to develop their properties where they haven't been allowed to before without significant costs. So I'll be supporting this as well.
Councilor?
Yeah, I just have a question. This study, who initiates this study? Is it the province? Is it the NBCA? Is it the town?
So the study will be done out of our office, the NBCA. What we'll anticipate hearing about if this funding is successful in the spring, and there's an agreement being put in place between the federal government and the province, and then that money will come to the NBCA and help pay for that study. Part of it is mapping. Part of it will be us hiring a contract staff to do the in-house hydrology and
I'll repeat the question again.
Oh, sorry.
Who initiates it? Who initiates this study? Was it the province? Was it the town? Was it the NBCA? Who put this project together and said it had to be done?
Well, that's us.
That's you.
That's our proposal to, yes.
Okay.
And we had a meeting with.
And that's in conjunction with the provincial government, is that right?
Yeah, so our application goes, so the program was announced and a number of municipalities and conservation authorities applied through the province. So the application forms all get collected to the province. The province is prioritized them and presents them to the federal government.
Where I'm having trouble here is why should the town be responsible for $30,000 of this study if it's a provincial government project?
Well, I think that so the 50% comes from the federal government, and the 50% has to be matched, and it could be provincial, it could be conservation authority, it could be municipal money. The conservation authority is preparing to, as the board has supported us, putting together the component related to the part that benefits the whole watershed, and the thinking is that the part that benefits the town of Wasaga Beach will be paid for by Wasaga Beach.
So
That's all, thank you.
So just to follow up on that, so are there other contributors within the watershed?
So the part that's the watershed hydrology is funded by the entire NBCA board, so that's all municipalities, including Wasaga Beach. We'll fund that. At this time, we're only involved in making this application for round 3, only targeting Wasaga Beach. That's a little bit based on our limitations.
Specific to
Wasaga Beach, yeah.
I think that answers some questions. Any further questions, Councilor Smith?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Heather.
Oh, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. I just wanted to say this is an opportunity like we get all the time with funding out there, the NBCA has looked at their watershed and said this would be an excellent opportunity to utilize that funding. The board has said, yes, that's where we are willing to spend staff time and money. And so we're just putting it forward in hopes of getting funding for it. It's a great opportunity that through emergency management will help our fire department, things we've been planning for flooding, as well as for the landowners. So it's like any other funding that we would go for.
Okay, Councilor Samantha, I have you, but I think the CAO wanted to ask.
I just had a question, but I'll defer to the councillor.
Councilor Smith?
My question was, if anyone knows, because I know the NVCA is doing a lot of work on the beachfront, is the beachfront, could that be considered part of this project as well? Because I'm thinking of all the houses on Shore Lane and along that area. Is there any room for that to be done in that area?
Probably knows what's more on that project.
Come ahead. You better introduce
Sure,
yourself.
I'm Glenn Switzer, I'm the Director of Engineering at the Northern Science Conservation Park. We're just working on a project right now to clean up front. And there are 4 components of that. We're doing a biodiversity study along the Wasaga Beach beachfront. We're doing the bathymetry, so we're looking at the depth of water at 5 meters. We also have high aerial doing the topography. They're going to fly the waterfront and do the topography from the water's edge up to past the floodline or to the first road. And we also engaged Shore Plan Engineering that does a lot of coastal engineering work along the beachfront of Wasaga Beach. And they're going to be looking at refining, with the refined topography that we get from the aerial photography. We're going to refine exactly where the flood line is along the Wasaga Beach coastal area. And they'll also, with the bathymetry that they have, be able to model the wave uprush that occurs during a major Great Lakes high water period. So that is another component, and that's at no cost to the Wasaga Beach.
Thank you very much.
CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question with respect to the spring runoff, which is, in my experience, is where the town has experienced any flood threats, and that's generated through the depth of the snowpack and also the moisture content within the snowpack downstream from the municipality, the Clearview and whatnot. So that is a contributing factor, and as well as sometimes we do get ice jams in the Wasaga River, which create floods as well. So my question has to do with whether what we're going to be looking at here, and I support this. I think it's a good initiative. I'm just wondering if those type of events, not so much the ice pack, but the water content within the snowpack downstream will be part of this, because that is something that does impact the municipality in the spring, depending on the amount of snow and the water content.
Yeah, we'll be looking at, there's different kinds of events that can generate a major flood. There's a major rain event, there's snow melt, there's rain on snow events. So that'll be part of the whole analysis. We define the flows that are going to, within the framework of what the 100-year, 10-year regulatory events. Those are what we'll be looking at through. So we're hoping to have all that information in the study.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mr. Chair. A comment and then a question, if I may. Again, I want to comment that to the gentleman here from the NBCA and his comments on the beachfront and using Shore Plan engineers to do that topo and make adjustments to that high water table, 100-year high water table. That is a very positive move forward on behalf of the NBCA. The beachfront. I personally have built several properties on the beachfront. It can be very contentious with respect to where it's mapped that the high water 100-year high water table is and where it really truly is. And so this is a massive improvement. This is the NBCA for sure. I'm seeing them working in the right direction. So kudos to the NBCA for recognizing that. And they're using a great reliable firm in Shore Plan Engineering and Milo Stern to do that. But I'm glad to see this picture on the screen here. And it's a little off topic, if I may, Mr. Chair, but this is referred to as the China Bowl, if you will, which is a very special and important part of Wasaga Beach. But as you can see from that picture, the deterioration there, especially in recent years, has been fairly significant. And I'm just wondering if these gentlemen have any information as to what the plan is to try and mitigate that shore or that bank deterioration.
So this picture is actually from this April, where there was, I think a lot of you might have seen the photo or probably seen it in person, where there was a major slump on the river there. Erosion, it's a natural process in the river. One of the things that we do through some of the planning and our regulations is to try to control development within these areas so we don't put houses that are at risk of these flooding. And ultimately, when existing properties are at risk, such as the one you can see at the end of the photo there, and they have a shore, the private landowner, we allow and the municipality also encourage people to protect their property through engineering works. So, in terms of your question, collectively, is the NVCA going to proposing to develop any works to prevent erosion here? We have certainly not generally in our scope. We provide information to people about the hazards that are potentially available when it comes to new land development. But as erosion is a natural process, we generally let it go its course.
Follow-up question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I understand erosion's a natural process and we let that go. My concern here, and perhaps this will be a question for the MNRF, because I believe that's their property that we're seeing erode there, is I look at this and see this as a safety issue for young children or people that may be in the park area on this embankment, because it is very unstable. So that's why I asked the question, but maybe perhaps we can take that over to the MNRF instead. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any further questions of the deputation? If not, I thank you, sir, for appearing, both of you, actually. And I have a resolution. I'll read it. Moved by Deputy Mayor by Fulci, seconded by Councillor Bray. Resolved that the Public Works section of the Coordinating Committee does hereby receive the National Disaster Mitigation Program Flood Mapping Partnership with NVCA report for information. And further, that the Public Works section of Coordinating Committee does hereby recommend to Council that funding in the amount of $28,178 plus HST be allocated for this program in the town's 2017 budget. Any further questions or comments? If not, Madam Clerk.
The motion having been read, I'll ask the members to respond in favor or against. Councillor Boulanger.
In favor.
Deputy Mayor by Fulci. In favor. Councillor Bray. In favor. Councillor Eagle.
In favor.
Councillor Smith. In favor. Mayor Smith.
In favor?
And Mr. Chair.
In favor.
The motion is 7-0 in favor. The motion is carried, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So, continuing on, item C, unfinished business, we have none. Item D, other agency reports. Item E, consent agenda. All items listed below will be approved by one resolution. There will be no separate discussions on these items unless a council member requests it, in which case the item will be removed from the consent resolution and considered immediately following adoption of the remaining consent agenda items. Now, before pressing on, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I may, I have asked to have the engineering report, capital works project with respect to the West End water storage facility pulled. And I hadn't asked, because I quite frankly forgot or missed it, but I'd also like to have the equipment contract RPF PW 2016-07 for the 6-cylinder diesel engine 4-wheel drive tractor pull, if I may, Mr. Chair.
So, just housekeeping here. What was the first one?
So the first one is, actually I'll go in order. So the first one would be the tractor, the new tractor. The second one would be the West End water storage facility and maintenance depot. On page 3, under engineering.
Mr. Chair, that would be the first report under departmental staff reports. That one, you don't have marked on your agenda.
Okay, so we'll pull that when we get to it further.
Thank you,
Correct?
Mr. Chair.
All right, I would ask the indulgence of council, as I have one that I would like to speak to as well, and that would be the grass cutting standards for municipal properties. I was wondering if we could move that back to the final item on the agenda. I'll continue to chair But when we get to that, I've asked the deputy mayor, who's the deputy chair of this committee, to take over the chair, and I'll be leaving and returning my seat, and then we'll just press on from there. So with that agreement,
Chair, I had pulled related to public transit infrastructure, but I have since received the information I requested, so
You don't want that.
I don't need that.
okay, I'll get, when we get to that. So if we have that agreement, do we just move that one to the final item? And we'll press on.
Mr. Chair, if I could just interject for a moment. We have, thank you to the council members that did contact me and to provide the information they wanted pulled. We do have the grass cutting pulled. We have pulled the good roads motion because we do have to add some names to that when we come to that section. Councillor Belanger has withdrawn the public transit report, so it will be part of the consent agenda motion, and we have pulled the maintenance depot resolution, and I will just get the equipment one that was just pulled signed up, which is the first report.
So that's all the items that have been pulled.
Oh, who's second?
Okay. So, Madam Clerk, we will go through these items that have been pulled. Do you want to put the balance of the motion now at this point?
Yes, Mr. Chair, the overall consent motion should be presented.
Do you have it there, or do I have it?
Do we have it? We should.
Okay, thank you. So, for the members, moved by Councillor Bray, seconded by Councillor Smith, resolved that the Public Works section of Coordinating Committee hereby receives the October 13th, 2016 consent agenda items 4E through 4G, and that all the recommendations contained therein be adopted. So that's not the right one.
Slight adjustment is required.
Yeah, that adopts the whole thing, so.
With the committee's indulgence, we'll put as amended. I think that's the practice.
Did everybody hear that?
Yep.
So, we shall call the vote on the ones that were not held, correct?
Yes.
There you go.
So, Mr. Chair, the motion has been read. So this is the general motion adopting all of the items except those that have been pulled. So I'll ask the council to respond in favor or against. Councillor Belanger.
In favor.
Deputy Mayor Bycoach. In favor. Councillor Bray. In favor. Councillor Eagle.
In favor.
Councillor Smith.
In favor.
Mayor Smith.
In favor?
And Mr. Chair.
In favor.
So we have 7 in favor, 0 against. The motion is carried, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So now proceeding on, we will start with equipment contracts RFP PW 2016-07, 6-cylinder diesel engine, 4-wheel drive tractor with minimum 110 rear PTO horsepower, complete with front and rear 3-point hitch and implements. And Mr. Mayor, then you held that. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Through you to the director. Kevin, how many hours are on this machine, do you know?
I don't have that information with me.
If I would like to get that information, if I may, Mr. Chair, before I'm prepared to vote one way or the other. And have we spent, or do you know how much we've spent to date, pardon me, to maintain this machine?
We do have that cost. In fact, we put upwards of $23,000 into that unit last year, and didn't have that unit available to us for the majority of the year due to a lot of the engine and PTO issues and overheating issues that we have. So it's certainly at the end of its useful life, but we do have that information, Mr. Chair.
And the last, if I may, Mr. Chair, is, what is it used for? So just, I guess, Mr. Chair, in future, when we're looking to replace a vehicle, whether it be for public works or any other vehicle in the town, I think it's important that we have this type of information, the age of the machine, the amount of hours on it, if it's a large piece of equipment, because often hours are more important than the age, what it's used for, and the amount of money that's been spent to maintain it over the last couple of years. So if I may, Mr. Chair, I'd like to move perhaps a deferral on this until we have that information.
Would it be easier to send it on to council with no recommendations and have the information at council
I'd be fine with that, Mr.
rather
Chair.
than hold it up and bring it back?
We certainly have all the information, and if I would have known, I would have the superintendent here to speak to all these issues.
All right, so the process now will be to recommend it to council with no recommendations, with a further report to come to council from staff. Help me, Mr. CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would suggest that committee deal with the question, and that notwithstanding whatever the vote is, that information would be presented to council at the end of the month.
So, Mr. Chair, I'd be prepared then to support this today, providing it's agreed that we'll have the other information before council.
Thank you, sir. And thank you, Mr. CAO, for your pearls of wisdom. So, do we have a resolution on that one then? Send it on to recommendation. Yep. So regarding item I, department staff reports, public works, equipment contract, RFP PW 2016-07, 6-cylinder diesel engine for wheel drive tractor with minimum 110 rear, PTO horsepower, complete with front and rear 3-point hitch and implements, moved by Councillor Smith and seconded by the mayor. Resolved that the Public Works section of Coordinating Committee does hereby recommend to council that the request for proposal RFP number PW 201607 for a new 6-cylinder diesel engine 4-wheel drive tractor with minimum rear 110 PTO horsepower, complete with 3-point hitch and implements be awarded to Days Equipment Center in the amount of $344,908.16, excluding HST, and the clerk will call the vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the motion has been read. I'll ask the members to respond in favor or against. Councillor Belanger?
In favor?
Deputy Mayor? In favor. Councillor Bray?
In favor?
Councillor Eagle?
In favor.
Councillor Smith? In favor. Mayor Smith?
In favor.
And Mr. Chair?
In favor.
Mr. Chair, the motion is has been voted on 7-0 in favor. The motion is carried.
Thank you. So the next item is the grass cutting standards that has been moved to the end of the agenda. Following that, 2017 Ontario Good Roads Association, I'll read the resolution. 2017 Ontario Good Roads Association Annual Conference, February 26th, March 1st, 2017 at the Fairmont Royal York Hotel. So the exercise today is to find out who wants to go. Correct? So we can add some names to this resolution if you know whether you're going to attend or not. Starting with
I plan on it.
Councillor.
I would like to attend.
Make a comment?
I'm sorry.
May I make a comment?
I'm asking whether you want to attend or not.
No, because I'll be attending the other one.
Mr. Mayor?
Won't be attending.
Will not be
Will
attending. Councillor Eagle?
No.
Councillor Belanger?
No.
And I don't plan to attend. And you'll be attending from a staff standpoint. Does that help you?
Mr. Chair, so we have Deputy Mayor Byfolchi and Councillor Bray. Do we add the staff member to this resolution usually? And who was that?
So,
Kevin?
Director.
And Kevin, what's your title?
Director of Public Works.
Thank you.
What's your name?
You'll have to be patient with me, Mr. Chair.
That's fine.
I'm learning
Madam
some
Clerk,
of
take your
the-
time.
Haven't got everyone's titles and such down yet. Okay.
Thank you very much. So,
Thanks, Kevin.
2017 Ontario Good Roads Association Annual Conference, February 26th, March the 1st at the Fairmont Royal York Hotel. Moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Deputy Mayor Byfolchi. Resolved that the Public Works section of Coordinating Committee does hereby authorize the attendance of the following staff and council members to the 2017 OGRA Annual Conference, February 26th to March 1st, 2017, as well as registration and associated costs. And the attending members will be Deputy Mayor Byfolchi, Councillor Bray, and Director of Works, Mr. Lalonde. Anybody else?
No, just a comment when you're
Comment.
finished reading.
Go ahead.
Oh, if you're finished reading. The first I heard was at the table 30 seconds ago that the ministers won't be attending and there won't be delegations at that conference. So my decision might change in the future. I just wanted it to be noted that I wasn't aware of that prior to my decision to attend.
Okay,
Thank you.
now I think, Mr. CAO, do we send the registrations with money at this point?
Mr. Chair, no, we don't. So,
So there's time for the, anyone to say they change their mind and they want to go or they don't want to go. Okay.
and just on that point, and I'm not sure what how AMO has announced this, but I know it's probably maybe 2 months ago, at least 2 months ago, that I became aware that the Rural Ontario Municipal Association and the Ontario Good Roads Association, which used to hold their conferences together for many, many years, have split. So the Rural Ontario Municipal Association's conference, I believe, is in November. And the Roads Conference is the typical time, which is in February. And the ministers have attended the conference in the past, the Roma-OGRA conference, and they've been there as part of the Roma, the Rural Ontario Conference. So they will be attending the conference in November, the Rural Ontario Municipal Association Conference in November. And I do not believe that they will be attending in any delegation or official capacity. There may be the Minister of Transportation, there may be a couple of other ministers, but I'm not aware of that. As I said, I just became aware, and I wasn't sure how members of council are communicated with that, whether they get emails or correspondence directly from email. But I just became aware of it just kind of in passing in talking with the deputy mayor from the town of Blue Mountains, who happens to be the chair of the Ontario Small Urban section, and advised that Roma and OGRA had split.
Thank you. Just wondering if we can find out that information, because the last I heard, I knew that they had split, but I was told that there was still ministers and delegations and those opportunities at the OGRA.
Sure.
So if we could find out.
Mr. Chair, I'll look into that and I'll let the members know.
Councillor?
Thank you. Just to clarify, the Roma conference is the end of January.
Oh, sorry.
And the one I think you're referring to, George, is the one at Blue Mountain for just small municipalities.
Small
It's more urban.
Mr. Mayor, did you have a comment?
No, I think best to be quiet.
Best to be
Chair,
quiet.
Thank you.
All right, so we've all heard it, and if we have anybody has second thoughts on the matter, please contact the clerk at an early date or the earliest possible date. So you've heard the resolution, and I'll pass it on to the clerk to call the vote.
Mr. Chair, the motion has been read. I'll ask the members to respond in favor or against. Councillor Belanger.
In favor?
Deputy Mayor.
In favor.
Councillor Bray.
In favor.
Councillor Eagle.
In favor.
Councillor Smith.
In favor.
Mayor Smith.
In favor.
And Mr. Chair.
In favor?
Motion is 7-0. The motion is carried.
Thank you. So now, if my information is correct, we move down to Wasaga Beach Water Storage. Mr. Mayor, is that correct?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you to Kevin, because we do have a fairly new member of council here, and this has been around for quite a while. If Kevin could indulge me and maybe just explain as brief as you can the whole premise behind this depot and why we're heading this direction. I just want to make sure that all members of council are clear and understand it, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Mr. Director?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chair. So the municipal Class EA that was initiated was primarily for the West End water tower. And that water tower is necessary to supply the west end of town, particularly for commercial development and commercial fire flow. And as part of the EA process and through the years, we've also explored the secondary storage facility and depot for the Public Works Department. It was recognized that there was an opportunity to undertake a kind of a joint EA to reduce costs, and recognizing also that we have to acquire property, that it would only make sense to acquire one particular area and have a joint facility on that property. So we've identified the need for these facilities throughout. They are both development charges related projects that have been identified over the last, I would say, 10, 15 years, and have built up reserves accordingly. And with the West End development lands being cleared and service extensions being made, particularly for the DAS property, and then some of the phasing restrictions that are on some of the sites out there due to available water, the EA was expedited, and it's currently, we've had 2 public meetings, and this is the results of the most recent public meeting. And following the closing of the environmental study report, there will still be a 30-day commenting period on the preferred location. In a parallel process, we also are undergoing discussions with the property owner for that, or the landowner that we're looking at acquiring lands from. So we've had ongoing dialogue and positive dialogue with that landowner as well. And once the EA is cleared, we do have design budget slated for this year, provided the EA clears without any Part 2 orders or bump up requests, so to speak. And then we'll proceed with some of these servicing installations and the RFP for design build of the water tower. The water tower is the first phase of site construction, and then over the next course of 5-10 years would be the staging of the material storage facility to house a lot of the winter sand salt storage to address some of the needs in the West End. There's considerable travel time to and from our current facility. And then from there would also be the building. There's a supplemental office building and garage. We're also exploring a joint garage with the transit buses in that facility as well, as we're currently occupying the old fire hall number 1, which certainly isn't going to be there for much longer. So there's a joint use in that building as well. So that generally summarizes it in a nutshell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's great. Thanks, Kevin, for that. I guess the next question I have, in the interim, because I understand the amount of time required for trucks to go back and forth to this end to get sand. So they get there, they get to their area, they lay that sand salt down, and now they've got to drive back. Is there a possibility that perhaps we could speak to our neighbors in Clearview, because I believe on the 12th concession, not too far away, they have a sand salt storage facility, and perhaps we could work with them as we have in the past with respect to water, sewer, and so on, and ask them if they would be able to help us in the supply of sand and salt. Of course, we would pay for that and cover those costs, but would that help and save much time and dollars and cents of them having then to drive back and forth here to the far east end if they could just go over to the 12th?
I think if you look at sheer distance, there probably wouldn't be much improvement there. I know from our perspective, we don't store a great surplus of material, and whether they have the capacity to supply us as well as their needs, and just the simple coordination of who gets that last load of salt versus their truck or ours. So we can certainly have that discussion, but I don't envision that being, we'd have to look at distances, but I wouldn't say that would be a considerable benefit. But I can look at that and then bring back some information.
I think it'd be worth a look. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. Mr. Chair, if we could request that.
So, Mr. Mayor, would you move an amendment to have the matter referred to staff to have that checked out before we proceed further?
Well, I don't think that portion has really anything to do with where we're heading today. I think that's a further phase down the road, so it's not a concern to me with respect to the motion. I just think that it's something that we should look at because if it mitigates time and effort with respect, even for this winter, starting this winter, it's going to help. And why not look
Okay,
at it?
so you're comfortable to deal with this motion today?
I am. Thank you.
And is there any further comments on that?
Okay,
Councilor
well,
Belanger?
yes, thank you, Chair. Just a clarification, because it was, you were speaking to bring me up to speed. So the decision to acquire property to accommodate the storage and the costs associated to the extra property and the storage, do we have any idea of timeline and the actual costs that might be involved in that?
Mr. Chair, there was a report brought through closed session based on property negotiations, so that perhaps might be a closed session discussion.
Okay.
But we do have an appraisal, certainly, a more recent land appraisal document completed, and we've shared that with the property owner, so we do have that information available.
Okay, the other thing too is there was I'll talk in general terms because I'm not remembering if it was totally in camera. There was another property being discussed closer to the west end that might potentially be able to store transit buses that, that a cost might be more reasonable than what was being suggested. So I just think there's maybe a little more review required. But at this point, if I'm clear, is this motion for us not to move forward with an additional purchase of land to accommodate the storage area?
Mr. Director?
That direction's already been given, Council.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
So are we satisfied?
Yeah, that's fine.
So at this point, I'm going to read the resolution. Moved by Councilor Ego and seconded by Deputy Mayor Bicolci. Resolved that the Public Works Section of Coordinating Committee does hereby receive the Public Information Center summary report for the Wasaga Beach Water Storage Facility and Maintenance Depot for information. Madam Clerk?
Mr. Chair, the motion has been read. I'll ask the members to respond with in favor or opposed. Councillor Belanger.
In favor.
Deputy Mayor.
In favor?
Councillor Gray.
In favor?
Councillor Eagle.
In favor?
Councillor Smith.
In favor.
Mayor Smith.
In favor?
Mr. Chair.
In favor.
Mr. Chair, the vote is 7-0 in favor of the motion.
Thank you. Now I have one other resolution here, which I believe has been dealt with in the overall resolution. The Public Works Section Department, Public Transit Infrastructure, that was held by Councillor Belanger but released. So that has already been dealt with.
Mr. Chair, I think we took it out of the main motion, so we should present that. Yes.
Did we?
So it hasn't had a formal vote yet.
I'm sorry, I thought the counselor at the beginning of the meeting said he didn't need it pulled anymore because he had his answer.
Yeah.
So it didn't, so I believe we've already voted on it.
So it is incorporated in the main motion?
It should be, yes.
All right, I just want to make
Okay.
sure that there was a vote
So
on
then
it.
this motion is superfluous.
Yes.
I'll give that back to you. And that now completes the agenda, other than the one item that's the matter that is going to be taken on by the deputy mayor.
Okay, thank you. So I believe you pulled it, Councillor Stockwell.
No, I think it was Councillor Smith.
Oh, Councillor Smith, did you want to speak to it?
Yes, I thank you, Madam Chair. I just had, I was a little confused because I, when I was reading through it, I thought, oh, this sounds like the Parks and Recreation report, and I wasn't quite sure how much Parks and Rec versus Public Works, or where the support was. But my concern is on the list of things that the areas, I don't see vacant lots on there anywhere, and I don't see town-owned lots or empty MNR lots. And I think we've had a discussion at council that, or at this table, that we felt that we should be setting an example for our residents by looking after our own properties. And I know there's a few areas in town, I'm not quite sure if they're town-owned or empty M&R lots, but I think if they are empty lots from the M&R point of view, that we should also be considering whether to charge them if we have to cut that lot. If it's an individual one in the middle of a bunch of other things and it's being let grow overgrown. So I just wanted to comment on that and just get the feeling of, are we adding things that are already being done, but I didn't see them listed.
Jerry, did you want to join us at the table as well, just in case you want to jump in there too? Okay, you can talk. Kevin, did you want to start?
Yeah, I can speak to public works operations. It certainly includes all the road allowances, boulevards, intersections. That's all included. We effectively go down every street, and it's a unique community where you've got permanent residents, you've got some seasonal cottagers that may only be here, a few times a year, and at which point, although they may cut their grass when they're here, they may not be here for another couple of months, 3 months later, at which point, when we do pass these areas, we do drop the boom flail or the type of equipment that's in that area to address those needs. From the town-owned lots, like a lot of the lots that I can speak to Public Works, will there's stormwater management ponds, there's corridors for Trillium Creek or those types of environmental lands that's owned by the town. We certainly do not cut grass in there, let alone be limited to get into those areas just given the vegetation and growth. What we do address on town-owned lands is noxious weeds or poison ivy. If we witness or we observe poison ivy on some of these properties, we do have a contractor engaged that does work with both Jerry and myself to address these areas. We also respond to public complaints if they back onto municipal lands that we will again engage the contractor to spray the adjacent poison ivy. But in terms of getting into, I can't speak for some of Jerry's properties in terms of, grass plots. I don't know how many we actually have, but we certainly address all the road allowances within town. On open road allowances, we do not maintain. Similar to winter offs, we don't snow plow or deal with that on open road allowances. Mind you, if there is a tree that's dead that may fall on a neighboring property, we will address that regardless of whether it's opened or not. But from a maintenance standpoint, we don't address open road allowances.
Jerry, did you want to speak from your department?
Excuse me. I've included the Schedule A in there with a list of all the properties that we maintain at this time. There are other open space properties. Most of them are woodlots, so we don't do any maintenance on them at all. I'm not sure about town-owned lots. I'm not sure if there are any that, besides the woodlots, that need maintenance. I can only think of one area that we do maintain, and it's along the trail along right the road there, the Marl Lake subdivision, and we maintain some property between the trail that goes along the back of the subdivision and the housing itself. The other side we don't maintain; it's adjacent to the fields and forest next door. So other than that, as I indicated, it's just the trail entrances and along the trail sides and so forth that we'd like to maintain more anyway. But at this point, we only get at them probably once a year. So.
Does that answer your question, or do you have?
I'd just be interested to know if we could do maybe, because it has come up before the table, an inventory of town-owned vacant lots that are within residential areas that we could consider doing. So before we get complaints we've heard at the table that we have complaints from people that they're being, their lots, so they have to keep their lots, and yet the town-owned lots are not being looked after. But I would really like to see what town open lots there are that aren't being maintained.
Okay, and again, I've only ever heard of more of the ditches that people are concerned about. I haven't heard of actual lots, and again, wood lots,
I'm sure
we can't maintain those, but how difficult would it be to provide that? Would that be something that Monica would be able to provide, town-owned
Well,
lot?
with GIS, Madam Chair, we do have a map of all the town-owned lots. In fact, I have copies right here just as a quick reference. And what you'll find is the majority of town-owned lots are, sure, they're vacant lots, but they're not cleared lots. They're vegetated lots, or they're stormwater management lots, or they're creek corridors. So whether there is an opportunity to send staff through a treed lot with a whippersnapper, that's something
that's not. That's not. I'm
more of a
referring to.
manicured lot, though.
No, and if I may, I'm sorry, Manager. I didn't realize, but when you go down Golf Course Road, Zoo Park Road and Golf Course Road at that corner there, that's always growing long, and if it's M&R property, and they're not maintaining it, there's no trees on that, it's just long grasses and weeds that grow in there. If that is a piece of property that belongs to M&R or town, I'm not sure, but it certainly wasn't maintained all summer, and we were trying to get everything cleaned up, and when you come into that intersection, all you see is weeds growing in the field.
I'm just wondering if, Kevin, maybe, because these are in black and white, maybe you can circulate that to council members in color, and then if there's particular areas, maybe you can send it to staff, and if it's a property standards issue, then we can deal with it that way.
You are correct, Councillor Smith. That is a town-owned lot. Public Works maintain the road allowance, so there's a fence line there, so we maintain up to the fence line. That particular corner, I don't think we're doing that as a town-owned lot. Again, majority of Public Works is road allowances, and then Jerry would be parks and other facilities. So town-owned vacant lots.
That's what I'm referring to. Yes.
We can share this map, and if there's particular locations, certainly we can look at. But I don't believe there's too many, but we can share that.
I think it'd be a better use of time if you know of a particular area that you can maybe just send it, and then staff can look into it. Thank you. Councillor Stockwell?
Yes, I think, thank you, Madam Chair. I think this report came about as a result of a motion that I put some time back in regards to calls that I had been receiving from residents saying, we think it's somewhat unfair that your bylaw people come to my lawn and threaten to charge me, etc., because I haven't done a job on my grass, and yet right next to us is a property owned by the municipality, and they it's just as bad as mine, if not worse. So we sent a note for a report, and I think this is the report. It's a good report. I think it shows that we have so much going on in the way of bits and pieces of properties owned by either the municipality or the ministry or what have you, is that we've just done a good job, I think, of dealing with them over the years. But when we get that question from the ratepayer is how come your bylaw people are after me when you're not doing the same thing? Well, it really, I think this report shows that it comes down to the point that probably is the situation, that we asked residents to do a better job on their housekeeping and not necessarily can afford the cost to the taxpayers of doing the same thing with all those mega amounts of bits and pieces we have. So really I see we have one of three choices: to either say, okay, we're going to do the service on property owned by the municipality, the same as the municipality, even though at any cost, and I think the cost would be great, or we'll relieve the residents of the bylaw problems that they're doing, or we accept the fact that common sense tells us that there is a law for private people of their small bits of property, and it just is economically unsound to make the municipality and pass it off to the taxpayers the cost of doing the same. So that is yet to be decided by this municipality. So, and the other thing is that, and again, a matter that I brought up at budget process is the possibility of contracting out things like snow removal or grass cutting. And I think this report would help us in that regard. So I'm quite happy with the report. I think it's a good report. I don't want to see it lost. And I'm just wondering if the committee would agree to refer it to the budget process and have another look at it through the budget process. And I would like to move that. I can move it now.
So are you looking to, maybe this is just for information, are you looking to add
No,
a piece on the end to say and forward to committee of the whole
Yeah,
for budget
I think it's
consideration?
a good piece of information. However, I don't want to see it lost. I would like to refer it to the budget process, that the matters can be addressed at that point.
So we would have to vote on an amendment to this for that piece?
Madam Chair, we would either have two motions, or if the committee would agree, we could add a clause that says that this be accepted and be referred on to budget for consideration.
Okay, that's what I was
And that would be a friendly amendment or not.
It's moved by Councillor Ego, seconded by Councillor Bray, so I would
Would ask that that be added to, is that possible?
Is that considered friendly?
Through you, Madam Chair, it certainly is on the same subject, so yes, it could be added to, as long as the mover and seconder agree to add that to the motion before it's presented.
Right, we're not approving what's in the report and moving forward with anything, we're just saying take it to budget for consideration. Councillor Boulanger?
Yeah, just a comment maybe is, when we talk about noise issues, when I was talking to the bylaw office, they say that we have to get 5 complaints before it's considered a nuisance. And I'm just wondering, if we get a complaint from a resident about their grass cutting versus ours, sometimes it's someone looking for a specific excuse for their position versus our lot actually being a nuisance. So I'm just wondering what the process is. Like, is a single complaint about a public-owned lot significant enough for us to be considering incurring a lot of cost, or should we adopt something similar to the noise bylaw where that you need to get a number of complaints before we would address an issue?
May I
Go ahead.
just through the chair to Councilor Boulanger. I understand what you're saying. I think the report has been done. I say that I think it's a good report. I think it's a good report, and I don't want to lose it. So Councilor Boulanger, you're right. But we're not doing it because we've had 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 or 15. It's just that I don't want to lose it. I think it's an exercise that should be addressed by council somewhere in the process, and probably at the budget time. So by adding this amendment, I'm quite happy.
Yeah. Okay, so it's moved by Councillor Ego, seconded by Councillor Bray. Be it resolved that the Public Works Section of Coordinating Committee does hereby receive the grass cutting standards for municipal properties report for information, and that it be referred to Committee of the Whole as Budget Committee for consideration. Is there any further discussion? Okay, I'll pass that on, please.
Madam Chair, the motion has been read, and I'll ask for the members to respond in favor or against. Councillor Boulanger?
In favor?
Councillor Bray? In favor. Councillor Ego?
In favor?
Councillor Smith?
In favor.
Mayor Smith?
In favor.
Councillor Stockwell?
In favor.
And Madam Chair?
In favor?
The motion is 7-0 in favor of motion.
Okay, thank you, and we will recess till 1 p.m. After the